they were all good. Gordie Howe was a tough one to play against because you had to earn his respect, and sometimes you got it and sometimes you didn't. Richard, I felt about Boris that if you played him fair and hard, he played you the same way. Beliveau was always a gentleman. The story about Beliveau, the first night he came to Madison Square Gardens to play against the Rangers, Frank Boucher was our coach, and he asked me, he said, "Bob, when was the last time you played forward?" And I said, "I think I was around 12 years old, playing Bantam hockey." And he says, "Well, you are tonight." And I took the face off and played center ice against Jean Beliveau all night long. And I guess I did a reasonably good job because I wound up being as well as a defenseman, as a defensive forward. And I skated a lot of nights covering Gordie Howe, Maurice Richard, Billy Mosienko, Teeter Kennedy. And I remember one night Teeter Kennedy shook my hand and said, congratulated me on the game. I think I'd limited him to 1 assist or something, but he was older than I am, and he says, "They must figure I'm making a comeback when they put a kid on me like you." Penalties. Yeah, I got a few, but I think most of them were the kind from just tripping or kneeing and that, not too much. I got a few fighting penalties, and I had enough common sense never to fight Gordie Howe. I had a couple of good ones there with guys, but not in particular. As I say, I think most of the penalties, when I got to that stage of the game, were just by boarding and things like that. The regular penalties. Junior hockey was a little different. I guess I got a little cocky there. I don't know, but I just felt as though I was playing the game, and I just stood up for some other players a couple of times, but I was considered, I guess, a good size in those days. I was 6'1" and between 180 and 190 pounds, but I only received 1 misconduct penalty in my whole career, and that was in Boston one night, and I got a penalty for tripping, and I didn't think I deserved it. And I went to our Rangers bench and I had a drink of water. And as I skated back and got in the penalty box, the referee told me that drink of water had just cost me $25, because that was the fine in those days for a misconduct penalty. I guess probably the best scrap I had of all was with a fellow by the name of Red Eye Hay, when he was in Omaha and I was in Denver. Those fateful words came out of the referee's mouth. He says, "Stand back and let him go." So we had a pretty good scrap that night, and we shook hands at the end of the fight and took our penalties, and that was the last time we fought. But Red High, I don't really know him, but I know he fought every night in Omaha in the 3rd period, because he used to televise that period in Omaha, and he fought somebody every 3rd period. And I got into some sort of a jam, and it was hard to feel because the players were all over the ice, but when Jeffrey hit Ron Murphy over the face with his hockey stick and did some damage, I was involved in that and pushing and shoving. But other than that, I think I do every year. It was a couple of instances. I think one year in Cleveland, I was with a fellow out of Pittsburgh by the name of Pete Backer, and we started doing a little bit of that, and they were going to put us in the boxing card at Christmas time and give us $500 each for boxing, and everything was fine until one of the reporters in Cleveland said that he thought it was enough of that nonsense. He'd watched me fight 2 or 3 times and I hadn't won one yet, so that was the end of that. Probably Hal Lako.
Yeah.
Hal Lako, he was big and he was tough, but he had a bit of a mean streak in him.
Yeah. Well, he was big?
Well, fairly good. I mean, tall.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a good size, yeah. And he was kind of their Boston's defensive forward, and I was, much to my chagrin, I was made into a forward because I didn't enjoy playing forward at all, and But when we were looking, like our centermen in New York at that time were Ronty, Raleigh, and Camille Henry. And I think Ronty was the heaviest, and he wouldn't be but 160 somewhat. I think Bones was about 150, and Camille Henry was about 140. And so that's when Beliveau came at 220 and 6'2" or 4" or something like that. And I could skate like Harry Howell was bigger than me, but I could skate better than Harry Howell as far as a forward like to go. And the other players we had at that time was they were defensemen. They were brute force.